forced resignation, forced retirement. None of this is in education law. And they never had a right to do any of this without collective bargaining. And so the fact that they didn't represent their members and the fact that they took it upon themselves to create this arbitrary, literally arbitrary arbitration agreement out of, thin air, we need to be attacking them specifically. So that is the difference with Austin. We are going after the UFT.
Hello and welcome to Teaching Liberty. My name is Stephanie Edmonds, and in this video, we're going to be talking about vaccine mandates, or more specifically, the still ongoing lawsuits challenging vaccine mandates. And we will be doing that with none other than Rachel Maniscalco, or perhaps you know her as Do Not Comply NYC. She is a teacher and a mom who, like me, formerly worked directly for the New York City Department of Education, and she filed the very first lawsuit, which was a class action lawsuit that I joined against New York City and the Department of Education for their vaccine mandate. Although that lawsuit did not turn out as we would have hoped, our lawyers even applied to the Supreme Court and were denied, there are many, many lawsuits challenging vaccine mandates all around the country, many of which just recently came away with some very big wins. Here in New York State, however, and specifically in New York City, we are up against particularly tough social and political forces. However, that was to be expected from the very beginning. New York State and New York City in particular have been targeted with the harshest and longest lasting mandates and other pandemic era policies. And so we must and we will continue to fight this fight on all fronts, including this one right here that we're talking about, the legal front, in the courts. In my last video, which I released on Mother's Day, I had a conversation with warrior mama Jennifer Eisenberg, who is suing her employer for letting her go due to the vaccine mandate. You can check out that conversation by clicking on the card right here, or I have the link in the description down below. I'm also part of a class action lawsuit with over 90 other educators, including Rachel Maniscalco, who we're going to talk with right now. To donate to that lawsuit, go check out the link in the description down below. And while you're down there, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. Plus, I go live every Saturday night between 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or for Teaching Liberty anytime, head over to teachingliberty.org. Without any further ado, let's chat with Rachel. What's going on, Rachel? Thank you for joining me here.
It's so nice to see you again. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
Can you believe it? We survived without the New York City Department of Education.
And without the shot, right? Winter of death. We did not succumb. We did not comply, and we did not succumb to the death, the pandemic of the unvaccinated. I was just thinking about that earlier.
When I was standing up and saying, I'm not going to do this, and I was looking for other people who had information, there was you out front. I have a lawsuit to join. And so that was really amazing. You were definitely one of those people who were out front leading, and I'm super grateful for that. And I know there's a lot of cases that are still going on. It's been a year and a half. Everybody's back to normal. I call it the veil of normalcy. So can you just give us a quick summary of what are the current lawsuits that are going on? And I know some you're a part of, some you're not necessarily a part of, but they're impact litigation, so they will affect all of us. Just give us the quick summary.
Okay, so I've talked about the initial lawsuit that we had, that was the class action that was with Lou Gellermino and Mark Fonte. They did their best, and I stand by them as attorneys. I felt like they really, really tried for us. We didn't know where to go with this, what to do. This was completely uncharted waters. And when they filed it, they took the route of constitutional rights, right? Like, we have a constitutional right to autonomy and life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness and these things. And the judges were like, nope, not during an emergency, not during a pandemic. No. And it got We
Was
appealed
an initial victory though. We did win. I think it was
an
2
injunction.
initial injunctions that moved the date back twice.
Yes. So people were supposed to be not let go, but put on LWOP, put on leave without pay in September, and it got pushed to October. So people did get another week's pay, maybe 2 weeks pay. And then as of October 4th, everybody who didn't comply was on leave without pay.
And that was really important, I think, because it really helped give us that hope. It really gave something for people to rally around, come together, and create these groups that still exist today on social media, in private forums. And it was very, very important.
Yeah. And friendships, some of my best friendships are with people I've met over the last 2 years rather than people I grew up with. Because a lot of the people I grew up with, I don't speak to because of this. But anyway, going off on a tangent. So Lou and Mark did take it as far as it could go and did petition SCOTUS, and they said no shot. So that ended in April of 2022.
So it's been a year.
It's been a year. Yeah. A lot of people were fired in February of 2022 who did not sign the waivers. I did not sign the waivers. I didn't sign the resignation waiver. I didn't sign the extending LWOP waiver. I didn't take their insurance. And I didn't cash out my car days. I just actually cashed out my car days because I was finally terminated in August of last year. So I just cashed out my car days. Who knows when I'll see that money, whatever. But I started a lawsuit. My personal attorney is Jim Wagner. And we started a lawsuit based on the fact that I'm vested, I'm tenured. I was terminated with no due process. I never had one red flag, never a disciplinary action in my file. This arbitration agreement was always supposed to be non-disciplinary, right? You're not being punished. You're just being fired because you have decided to continue to be a health risk, whatever. But in New York State education law, there is no such thing as LWOP. There is no such thing as termination without even a reason. So we said, all right, we're going to run with that. And we are now in our appeal. I want to say we lost the first round. We appealed. Our second round was dismissed, and our third round is current.
Was this through the 50-20, whatever, what's that one?
30-20A, like that?
Yeah. Was it that, or did you file like in a New York state court?
I'm pretty sure it's New York State court because our Austin Graff is doing a similar kind of more of like a class action. There's like 90 something plaintiffs, and that's a federal case.
Okay.
And that's a federal case that I'm involved in, but I'm not taking point on that one because it just can't with the kids, and I'm working.
I'm in that case too. I paid in that case as well.
Perfect.
And I know that we had lost the initial round, and it's taking more of a workers' rights. You had to be tenured to be part of this case.
Yeah.
And so it lost. We are appealing, and
yes.
And you can, in the description down below, check out our Give, Send, Go and donate to that, because this is super expensive. And although we're both working and doing better now, I know we ate into a lot of our savings. So it's like starting from scratch for most of us here. And I know a lot of people are still looking for ways that they can help. This is a great way. So in the description down below. But yeah, keep going, telling us about the cases.
So that's actually a really unique one. And we need to be doing more of this. And I think I actually got off the phone with an attorney on my way home from work today, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but we need to be going after the UFT. The UFT never had any business being in bed with Scheinman. They never had any business putting anyone on LWOP or forced resignation, forced retirement. None of this is in education law, and they never had a right to do any of this without collective bargaining. And so the fact that they didn't represent their members, and the fact that they took it upon themselves to create this arbitrary, literally arbitrary arbitration agreement out of, thin air, we need to be attacking them specifically. So that is the difference with Austin. We are going after the UFT, but again, you got these judges that dismiss the case, and it becomes dismissed with prejudice, which means once it's done, and you can't bring it about again, the same argument. It's kind of like double jeopardy. So that said, they're getting their bearings together. The beautiful thing about the attorneys that are working with us is they're friends. They are learning a lot from one another. They're sharing their knowledge and they're sharing their experiences. And they are powerhouses. I don't really know much about Chad Lavaglia. I know he's working with the sanitation guys, but you have Christina Martinez, who I spoke to today. You have Jimmy Wagner, you have Jim Romigas, you have Austin Graff, you have Jeanette Poyard. These are people, Lou and Mark, although, they helped us in the beginning, and they toyed with the idea of taking on more cases, but
right. And then there's the Educators for Freedom and Teachers for Choice. Nelson Madden Black, Sujata Gibson with Children's Health Defense. So this is just in New York City that there are dozens of lawsuits that are still being pursued on this matter, attacking from all different angles, testing the courts. And it's only a matter of time, I have to imagine, that whether it's one of these cases or a case from somewhere else in the country makes its way up to SCOTUS.
Yeah.
I would imagine at some point, I mean, they did take a slew of religious liberty cases in 2021, or it was 2020, 2021 session. They did like the school choice, that religious schools could get school choice money. They did religious organizations could fly their flag just like other organizations in front of City Hall. The coach could pray. So I feel like the court is looking at it, and I definitely pray, although, God, of course, is the final arbiter of justice in my book. No court can decide, but I pray that perhaps man does see some justice through these courts.
We need it. We need justice. We need, at this point, a lot of us need our jobs back. I don't know if I would go back to the DOE, and we'll get into that, but we need back pay. And I think we need a sincere apology that we'll never get. The apology that says, I would like for someone to say, we really jumped the gun on these shots. And not only did they not work as intended, but they harmed a lot of people. And for the people who didn't get them, they were tossed aside, cast out of society, lost their careers, lost their homes, had to leave, and just, berated. I remember people looking at me like I was the scum of the earth for not wearing a mask. And here we are, how many years later, and the New York Times is coming out with an op-ed about how masks don't work. And it's the New York Times, like the most liberal newspaper imaginable. And people are finally waking up to the corruption and the lies of the government. And we're still not getting an apology. We shouldn't have done this to you, right? The shots never stopped transmission. At that point, when we knew that they didn't stop transmission, that is when the mandate should have ended. We thought it did. It definitely didn't. And we're done.
Yeah. Well, that's why I call this the veil of normalcy.
Right.
That this is just a pause. This is just a lull where they laid a lot of the frameworks from the vaccine database, not the databases themselves, but the technology to potentially create them, and various other policies. But what's your veil of normalcy like? How's, life these days? Where do you find yourself now?
So my older daughter's turning 12, my little one's turning 2. And if you remember, at the first rally, she was 2 months old, and now she's going to be 2 years old. So it's gone really fast, and I've really tried to enjoy every minute.
And that's got to be so hard, because right when you're bringing a new life into this world,
Yeah.
Your ability to provide for that life was taken from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it was really hard on my husband and I. We did not see eye to eye on things. He's not vaccinated either, but we really didn't see eye to eye on, me not doing it and losing my job. And then we didn't see eye to eye on me not signing the waiver. He was like, we need our insurance. And I actually, because of my lawsuit with Jim Wagner, I did keep our insurance until August. So I didn't need to sign anything. And thank God I was able to keep the insurance, but I took every job that came my way. I did tutoring. I did teaching at an SAT prep. I worked at a tax office. I worked at the bar. I still work at the bar. I love the bar. I still work at the bar because it's fun, but I am working at a yeshiva. I'm actually working, get this, it's kind of unbelievable. I'm working for an agency that places special ed teachers, and they've placed me at a yeshiva, which is great. They're wonderful. They're kind. They're conservative. There's free lunch every day. It's amazing. The agency I work for pays me. How do they pay me? They sue the Department of Education for money, for services, for kids that don't go to public school. And they pay me through the money they render for those services. That is city money. And it is exponentially more than what a DOE teacher makes per session. So, Eric Adams, you could have kept me on at my regular salary and saved a lot of money.
All right. So it's not working out too bad for you. Yeah, but I definitely know about how that works. I live in Connecticut, and in Connecticut, if you're out of the public school system, you can't get public money for services. But New York is very expansive in their services for kids with special needs.
Yeah.
And they fund it whether you're public or private.
Yes,
So yeah, you can sue them and get that funding.
it's
So
wild. I just couldn't even believe it, because I'm like, wait a minute. So the DOE is still paying me, but they fired me. And, when I went on this interview at my, the school that I'm working at, of course, they had to interview me to see if they wanted me to be in that school. And I guess someone had Googled me, and Tucker Carlson and Fox News and Newsmax and YouTube videos and all of these things came up, and lawsuits came up, and they were like, oh, we definitely want her here. We love her. We want her here. She's not Jewish. It's okay. I'm the only person that's not Jewish in the school. It's fine. We want her here. So, I go in, and, there's a lot of female teachers, and there's not really administration. There's rabbis, and the rabbis kind of run the show, and they're just really, really nice, very friendly, very professional. And I'm always meeting someone new, because it's a pretty expansive school. They have an elementary, they have a middle school, they have a high school. And so I'm sitting in the teacher's room the other day, and someone is in there, a rabbi's in there, and I've never seen him before, and I've been there a while. And he says to me, oh, Rabbi so-and-so told me about you. And I'm like, oh, okay, and he's like, we're really happy you're here, and we're really happy to have you, and we're so lucky that you're teaching our kids, and do you like it here? And I'm like, yeah, I love it here. Are you kidding me? Like, there's no nonsense. Like, we're not sticking inappropriate sex ed into the curriculum, and we're not teaching boys that they can be girls, and we don't have coming out closets, and we don't have all this nonsense. I love it here, because I don't have to pretend to be okay with a insane woke agenda that, quite frankly, if I was back in the DOE, I wouldn't be able to teach anyway. So maybe it's just truly not the place for me to be.
yeah, I started going to a Chabad during the pandemic because I couldn't go to my temple where I did growing up. I went to a Reform synagogue, and they required masks, and they carded. Yeah, that was the same for most of the synagogues around. So my friend, who I met just walking down the street randomly, And we started talking and she was like, oh, I'm Jewish. I was like, I'm Jewish. She's like, oh, I go to this little Chabad. And she was like, they're like-minded. Like, you're cool. You can come. And so I've been there ever since. And they're all of the things you're saying and more.
Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. I said to them at the interview, I said, I'm not vaccinated. I'm not getting it. And they were like, yeah, fine. Us either. That's great. I was like, I'm never wearing a mask. Like, I'll wear a wig before I wear a mask. Like, that is how I feel about it. And I think there was a little bit of a threat this past winter. Like, are the masks going to come back? Is it going to be
there was places where there were schools where masks were mandated
back again,
winter.
right? And I said, I'm not going to do it. So I just want that to be clear. I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to bulldoze anybody, but at the same point, I've gotten to a point, I'm 38. I just turned 38 and I've really very much found my voice. I know who my friends are. I know who my friends are not. I'm very much okay with every aspect of that. And here are my boundaries. And they will not be crossed under any circumstance. I've already lost a career because of my boundaries. I'm not afraid to start over anywhere ever again.
That's the thing for me, is knowing that I can give the thing up that I had spent the past 5 years working. I had made tenure. I had gone to school however many years before that, now here I am starting over. Yeah. And it's, I think, very humbling. Mm-hmm. It's exciting. Mm-hmm. And I think that even though a lot of people like to talk about, even I myself might fall into this at times, that it's so divisive. Oh, the culture war is this and that. But I think that there's a lot of hope.
I do too. It's funny. It's funny because I've told you, like, fallen off the protest scene, which I think has changed quite a bit. It used to be mandates and bodily autonomy and medical freedom and that kind of thing. And now we kind of have sectioned off. A lot of us have gone back to work, and that's great. Yeah, that's a great thing.
Exactly.
So we can't do the daily, I can't go to, City Hall during the day on a weekday. I can't. I'm working. Wednesday nights, I'm trying to join there's like a Wednesday night meeting with John Gilmore and Michael Caine and this and that. I can't. I'm working at the bar. Weekends, my daughter has a lot of sports, so I can't. And he just called me. Mike Caine called me. Oh, can you be in Boston for Kennedy's, coming out party, whatever.
His coming out party.
You know what I mean? And I would love
announcement, yeah.
And I used to come to everything. I came to everything. I went to Albany twice. Right.
Yeah, no, I remember. I was, and me too, but it's like, you have to choose. And I mean, that's kind of how I was with the lawsuits always. I was like, listen, I'm going to pay in and I will promote them. But in terms of being
point person
or following along or knowing the details of this and that, that's just not my thing. Yeah. And I think that is more true and gets more and more true the further out we are, is that you have to, by necessity, say, okay, like, what is my thing, and focus on doing that. And I think that that's also true, though, just of politics. Like, 2024 presidential election is coming up, and that's really exciting to talk about. And I'm going to ask you about some of your predictions. But at the same time, no president's going to save us. And certainly not any of the batch that we have coming up, And I think that where the change really is going to happen is at home, is locally. So what are some of your outlooks just, in the next few years coming up? And then maybe we'll talk about the presidential election specifically.
So I think you're right about not giving up hope and having faith and things happening at home. But I think that it's really important more than ever to be an informed parent, because parents are going to be the ones to make the changes. Lawsuits, sure, maybe. I feel like the judicial system is incredibly corrupt. I feel like the judges, I mean, my attorney's like, Rachel, I walked in and they're still in masks. What are we doing? Like, it may or may not happen in court, but it's really going to happen when a parent finally realizes, hey, wait a minute, there's a bullying presentation for my pre-kindergartner, and intertwined in that, they're telling my baby that not all boys have penises and not all girls have vulvas. And this is legitimately what is going on in the New York City Department of Education. And they're sticking it into other things.
It's the diversity, equity, inclusion,
yes,
social, emotional learning
exactly.
hodgepodge.
Exactly. And so when your kid is going home with a letter that says, oh, little Johnny is going to be learning social emotional development. And mom's like, great, that sounds so good, because after COVID, he's a little isolated and whatever. And then it's inappropriate sex ed, right? And then they get a little bit older and it is pornographic comic books and graphic novels. And then they get a little bit older and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And if parents don't know what is on the curriculum, what their children are being taught, and what is in the libraries, public libraries and school libraries. And also
they're doing away with the libraries a lot, and they're going to these technology centers, and there's a lot of one-to-one devices. Even though during COVID, online learning and computer-based learning was a complete failure, now we've gone one-to-one technology, and so kids are learning more than ever through screens, which I think is completely inappropriate. Maybe when you get to high school, there's a little bit more of an argument, but I think definitely K-8 should be very low technology, like computer lab or something.
For sure. They don't have they don't have the self-regulation. And they also need to be monitored. And when you have this one-to-one, off in the corner somewhere, hiding behind a screen and full access to all kinds of disgusting materials that are sanctioned by the DOE, this cannot go on. I mean,
finding their ways easily around the firewalls and all types of things like that. It's just not that hard. And I think that there's another layer to it as well that parents need to understand with the social emotional learning stuff is ultimately that's about collecting data on your kids' emotional states. The reason that they want kids on this technology is because it is the most data rich set out there. There is no more. You can collect multiple times more data on an education platform than you can from just regular internet scrolling. And then it gives a database, a data set for these companies of these kids when they're very young. And then they can start tracking them as they go further. So I think that we really need to start having that side of the conversation as well, because the culture war side of things is really important. The gender, the sex, the surface level stuff. But I don't want to get so distracted by that we're not seeing what's going on the other side. And I think they also market it to the freedom people too, but just in different ways. It's privacy. It's like you control your data, but so I definitely want to get more into having that conversation. I don't know if you've thought about that or heard about that at all. Especially it connects to the medical freedom side of things too, because think about the pharmaceutical industries and the government. Their whole purpose was building these databases so that they can track and trace you. So it kind of comes full circle in that way.
Yeah. The tracking of the medical stuff. Yeah, for sure. Because when I was in my pediatrician's office, they had a full history of my older daughter, and she had only just started going there, and they whipped it up on the computer, and I was like, I don't think I ever signed that that's okay. And can I opt out of that? And I love my pediatrician, and I love his nurse practitioner. She's one of us. And she was like, no, because anyone under 18, it's automatic by law that their medical information, vaccinations, everything is on the database. I can opt out of my own as an adult, but I cannot opt out my child. So luckily for my little tiny one, she has not had one shot or one anything. So she's not even on the database. She's off.
I don't know. Should we even put that in there?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. She's off the grid and it's no one's, you know what, business except for her mother and father.
All right. All right. Well, I appreciate you giving us the update on the legal front, on the personal front, on the, what your outlook is. I think you're exactly right about parents. I think that they are the key to the future, because I've always said this from day one. I can remember distinctly walking down the street in New York City. One of my first videos telling people why they should join the lawsuit was not for their job, but it was for their children or the kids who they taught or the future generation.
Oh, yeah.
So that is still why I do this. And I think that is the most important reason, because you can't beat true love. And that's what a parent and a child have, is true love. So real quick before we get out of here, 2024 presidential election, who's going to be the candidates? Because I think it's a toss-up on both sides. Like, I don't know if Biden's going to make it.
If anyone were to vote for him, I mean, I don't know how
Go blue no matter who, baby.
Oh, no. I don't know how demented you have to be truly to think that that man has done anything good, and to think that this country is in any way better now than it was when Trump was president. But disaster for the Democrats. RFK, love him. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a registered Democrat. I think he's, a great choice for the Democratic side. And if he became president, I mean, I think that, but he's not going to, because he doesn't cater to the machine. And it's not, they're not going to let it happen. They're not going to let it happen because Big Pharma would lose too much money. And it's just not, Bill Gates would lose. It's just not going to happen, but it would be a lovely idea. On the red side, I voted for Trump twice. I would potentially do it again if it ended up being him. I have no shame in that whatsoever. I think that as a businessman, the country was in great shape and his priorities are right. Is he, rough around the edges? Yeah. Does he offend people? Sure. Not me. I don't really care what he says about, I don't care what he says that might offend someone. Oh, he said something, derogatory about women's body parts. I don't care. Are taxes low? Is the economy doing well? Are we safe? Are our kids, not being forced to transition and weird ideas are being put in their heads? Great. Then we're doing all right. If it's DeSantis, also great. I think he ran Florida beautifully over the last few years. My sister lives there. She's been there for 8 years. She, didn't wear a mask. Her kid's not vaccinated. She never lost her job. She has never felt unsafe. His priorities are in a great place. DeSantis also, which I love about him, has also come around to the idea of, hey, wait a minute, maybe the shots aren't safe. My wife got it, and then all of a sudden she had very aggressive breast cancer. People have had terrible adverse reactions. Theirs blew up, right? So many vaccine injuries that did not happen with childhood vaccines. And I think childhood vaccines have their own issues. But mRNA, which has never worked out in the past, it has wreaked havoc on people's immune systems. And he has been the only governor to come out and say that specifically and form a committee to go after the pharmaceutical industry. So,
you know who I want to see? I want to see Rand Paul. I don't know why he doesn't. I feel like he went up against Fauci and made a name for himself. He could do it, but he needs to get going and get out there. Yeah, but I don't know, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about in terms of politics or his donors, because I know like RFK, he has Steve Kirsch, who's like a billionaire. So I think that was probably a big help for him to be able to fund his campaign.
Sure, yeah.
So I think that's probably the other thing. I know DeSantis has a lot of the donors coming to him right now.
Like Bush and all of them. RFK, though, they're going to paint him in the media as a crazy lunatic anti-vaxxer, and that is going to be his downfall. So, you know, I was talking about it with Jeff Pfaff last night.
Yeah, but we'll see, you know, like, I know they're talking crazy now, but I don't know.
It just can't be Biden.
The Democrats want to have that element almost. I don't know. I'm not sold that RFK is like this super anti-establishment figure like he's tried to be. I think he spent like 20 years being like a corporate attorney and stuff.
Oh, yes, I heard about that.
You know what I mean? Like, so again, I think it's an interesting element to have in the race. Yeah. But yeah, ultimately, I'm way more interested in what's going on at home. I just wanted some fun sound bites. Trump DeSantis, you know, put it in the title and get all the clicks or something. But
it'll be great.
I appreciate your coming through, Rachel. And
thanks for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah, no, for real. I was wondering too, like, because you have a big audience, like, are you making any content, trying to do a podcast? Like, are you trying to?
I'm not. So Betsy Combier, of Advocates, she actually, I've been in touch with her. She's a brilliant paralegal. She knows New York State education law inside and out. And she's been helping a lot of the attorneys with education law specifically. And she really knows her stuff. I mean, and she advocates for parents and teachers and, you know, and us. She loves us. She wants to help. We've gone live together. She is going to do a podcast, and she asked me to be involved. And I said, you know, I don't think I can take on one more thing at this point, but I would love to come on as a guest speaker on occasion. So I will. But I just don't think I can handle one more thing. I'm like ready to explore.
I hear you got to pick and choose. You got to pick and choose. And I can tell you're making the right choices.
Involvement.
All right. Well, and I'll definitely have you back on here.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Thanks for listening to this conversation. Please share this video. Let all of your friends know that we are still out here in New York. We are still fighting this fight, and it is expensive. The link to donate to our lawsuit is down in the description below. Click that button, donate generously. Like I said, send it to your friends, send it to your family. We all have a part to play in both making sure there's recognition that what was done with this vaccine and really so many of these other pandemic era policies was not just wrong, but it was unconstitutional. And also, we need to set those legal precedents to help ensure that this cannot happen again. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you've hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and you hit that notification bell. And for little daily doses of teaching liberty, come over on social media. Follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, or for more teaching liberty all the time, I'm at teachingliberty.org. Because when you think free, you live free.
Come on.